Hunting and gathering was our ancestors' most successful way of life, sustaining them for countless ages. They were masters of their environment, able to identify thousands of plants and animals, moving from environment to environment in cycle with the seasons. But the world began changing, forcing our ancestors to adapt to new realities. Generation after generation began to make changes that would ignite a conflagration. This is Ancestoria, the quest for dominion. At a time when food was becoming harder to find and population levels were becoming unmanageable, groups in the Middle East turned to a new method to secure part of their resources. 12,000 years ago, these tribes independently of one another began to plant a select group of wild cereals which helped to fuel the first permanent settlements. Many began roughly around the same time, but the most successful of these first settlements, Jericho, sprung forth in 500 HE and would be in use for over 2,000 years. During this time, they built massive stone walls with a 9-meter tall tower overseeing a 3-meter deep ditch, indicating that they were not only one of the first permanent settlements in the world, but they were also the first to make city fortifications, ensuring defense against raiding parties. Inside were mud brick houses, permanently tethered to the ground with plastered skulls resting beneath. This land was theirs, as it was the land of their ancestors before them, who now served as guardians in the area. Other settlements failed due to years of drought which led to famine, death, and decimated populations, no longer able to function as cohesive units. But Jericho was situated in the Jordan River Valley atop a natural spring that produced over 4,000 liters of fresh water per minute. The early farmers diverted this into a great irrigation system to fuel the growth of their crops. These factors ensured plentiful sunshine, a rich soil, and a sufficient supply of water. After 1,000 years of cultivation, the inhabitants of Jericho domesticated both barley and emmer wheat by changing their key traits. This meant that the amount of food the crops produced were many times that of cultivating the wild variety. To accomplish this, they stripped the land of trees and set it aflame to clear way for their crops. In time, the vegetation would regrow, only to be scorched again and again. With this, the city swelled to a population of 3,000 permanent residents. And while the people here and in the wider Middle East initially relied on hunting of the gazelles, they came to increasingly target herds of wild sheep. They intentionally killed all but the juvenile males and the young females to ensure a continued food supply. And little by little, this made the herds more docile until the groups were able to pen them in, keeping them for milk, meat, and leather around 10,000 years ago. Similar instances happened around the same time with pigs and goats. Through their surpluses, Jericho became a center of trade in a land that was now dependent on exotic resources. Many of these were sourced from the greater Mediterranean region, which not only created demand for an extensive trade network, but spawned new reasons for aggression. After nearly 2,500 years, the first occupation of Jericho was abandoned in 3000 HE. And while it may have been one of the most successful, it was by no means the only settlement. Across the Middle East, our ancestors were bending the nature of their lands, seeing villages rise and fall against the backdrop of the Fertile Crescent. But it was they who were the first to domesticate important food crops and livestock. Our world would be nowhere near as populous, nor specialized as we are today without this crucial transformation. This constant quest for dominion over both the earth and the earthborn supported greater and greater numbers of people. However, as our ancestors amassed prizes of rich material and claimed highly desirable land, the threat of warfare was on the horizon. This is Ancestoria, the history of our ancestors.